This project was focused entirely on production design, and it's an 18th century style dressing table. So from the start I knew that I wanted to create something that was a little bit more vintage, a little bit more old-fashioned. Although I have noticed a bit of a rise in costume dramas lately, via Netflix for example. The Empress achieved quite a lot of popularity lately, which I'm really happy about because I love that series so much. It's really good. So the concept for this project actually came about while I was watching the BBC drama Poldark. While conducting my research, I found it really interesting learning about the design team's preparation and thought process. Now, while much of the production design did indeed encapsulate the grandeur of the higher class individuals, we also got to enjoy depictions of homes of lower class. If you had a bit less money, you weren't really high class but middle class or a bit below that, but you can still afford nice things when you really want to. There would be more simplified versions of everything. So bare wood, less furnishings. They made do with what they could sustain. Almost everything you see on set was completely sourced from charity shops in my local area. This did have an effect on the historical accuracy because I couldn't find everything that was entirely in the era that I've chosen, but it still had the aesthetic and the kind of vibe that I wanted, that you could look at it and you could say, yeah, that's old-fashioned and it goes with the sort of environment that I've created. The other items would have been sourced from Freecycle and relatives and contacts that I know that I've messaged and I've been like, hey, have you got any antiques that I could borrow for this and that? When it comes to creation, I did have to make a few things. So for example, traditionally there would have always been sherry, whiskey or some kind of alcohol, someone's bedstand, dressing table, in their sort of quarters, especially during the evening when preparing to get ready for a ball or about to go to bed. So for this I did not use real alcohol, unfortunately. I actually used water and then added just a little bit of food colouring to get the sort of colour that I wanted. This also goes the same for the perfume and the cup of tea. I also wanted to include a little bit of makeup, though it wasn't extremely popular. If you were in a very fashionable area, for example London or Paris, places like that, there would have been makeup that you'd use when you're going to an event, especially during the evening time. You may draw a little heart on your face or collarbone area, and depending on where you place the heart, it can mean things very subtly. But if you learn the language, then you sort of get to know the person a little bit better. I wanted it to be very minimal, so I decided just to go with some white facial powder. I was very tempted to use my own loose powder. However, I decided in the end to just use some flour because I have plenty more of it and it would not go to waste. For the powder puff, I actually had some fabric left over from something that I had made. And what I did is I cut it up into a rough circle shape. I made 2 of those, glued them together, and then used a pair of sharp scissors to sort of roughly cut around it into the shape that I more preferred. Followed that with a little bow. Essential oils and different sort of hair care and beauty products were also quite big, and so I wanted to incorporate that. I used some really gorgeous antique containers that I borrowed from a relative, and I filled them up with just so random things that you wouldn't really be able to see from the camera angle too much, just to sort of have it there so it sort of encapsulates the mood a bit better. The main challenge that I had was sourcing a jug and bowl that I really admired. Looking at my research sources, the higher class individuals would have had very eloquent and detailed patterned ceramics, and the lower class would have had more plain and subtly pretty. However, last minute we ended up finding a really gorgeous jug and bowl set that had been up on FreeCycle. Honestly, thank you so much to FreeCycle because it has been a lifesaver. I'm so happy that I ended up getting that for free because it would have been quite expensive if I hadn't. Another struggle that I faced while filming and taking photos was lighting. Now, lighting is something that I haven't really worked with that much at all really, so I'm very novice in it. And I feel as though the light that I used was a bit too harsh for the time and the setting that I wanted to go with. The mood was alright, as I did try to use as warm a light as I could get. I did film when it was pitch black outside, it was night time, so I had to use completely artificial lighting other than the candles that were actually in the scene, and that is something that I definitely need to work on. So if I have any other projects where I have to use artificial lighting, I really want to study it a bit more prior to filming so that I have a better understanding of how to light each shot to a more realistic standpoint. Overall, I'm quite pleased with the final outcome. I know it isn't the very best that it could be, but it's certainly not the very worst that it could be either. A few things that I might refer to in the future to change, adjust and put a bit more effort into are things such as improved historical accuracy, creating or using a storyline to go with the environment rather than just making a set and that being it. Because if I got a real brief, there would be real characters and real circumstances that I'd have to take into account, and I feel as though that real world mindset will help me to create more personalised characteristics within my production design. And lastly, taking more initiative when I'm planning rather than just sort of going with the flow, and that can lead to unwanted mishaps and re-recording things, which isn't always best when you've got a deadline looming on you. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching my self-evaluation. I hope it was okay. Wait, what time is it? It is the right time. It's currently 10 to 2 in the morning and I need to sleep and edit this, so bye!